In today's video, we're going to be playing blue-black control with a combo finish. And if you don't know what this combo does, Narest says that players can't draw more than one card a turn. And Days Undoing is a wheel effect, meaning that you get 7 cards and your opponent only gets 1. Well, this effect is basically game winning. The problem is it is not very consistent. So we're going to be taking this new card from Lord of the Rings to help this deck become more consistent. Sauron's Ransom is a 3-mana instant that is very similar to Fact or Fiction. But with this only being 3 mana, it is much more powerful than Fact or Fiction. And while in game 1 we are a combo control deck, in game 2 we can transform into a reanimation deck. This is because we are playing 4 copies of Persist, Unmarked Grave, and Archon in our sideboard, meaning this is a very flexible deck with many ways to attack the opponent. So in today's video, we are going to be seeing how good this blue-black control list can be, and if Sauron's Ransom can make it more consistent. Match 1, we're on the draw, and hand looks fine. Opponent goes turn 1 Stomping Ground into a Delighted Halfling. We top deck an Indulgence, we'll shock in our Watery Grave, and push the Halfling. Opponent plays out a Flooded Strand, passing back. Ooh, we find a Ransom, we'll play out our Vantress. Opponent plays out a Plains, and on their end step, we'll cast our Tainted Indulgence. And we'll discard a Shark Typhoon. We top deck a Counterspell, so we'll lead on Thoughtseize. And Nissa is the only card that really matters in their hand, so we'll take that one, play out our Island, and pass the turn. They play out a Flooded Strand, and on the end step, we'll consider, and we'll keep a land on top. We top deck an Otawara, we'll play our Strand, and hold up a Ransom. Opponent misses their land drop, and we'll cast a Ransom. And they put Snap and Tainted Indulgence in the face-up pile. I think that's probably too good to pick up, but what's in the mystery pile? I'm gonna take it for science. Murderous Cut and Drown, we'll take that. We top deck a Force, we'll play out our Otawara, and hold up our interaction. Opponent shocks in a Breeding Pool, and we'll cast our Tainted Indulgence. We top deck a Consider, we'll play out our Delta, and cast a Thoughtseize. And in response, they cast out of Solitude. I guess we'll take the Binding. Opponent attacks in for 3, we'll take it. And then on the end step, we'll cast Consider. And Murktide Regent's a pretty good finisher, so we'll keep that one. And then we'll Drown and lock this Solitude. We find an Opt, we'll cast out our Murktide, exiling 5 instants, making it an 8/8. An opponent untaps, cast out a Fury, which is fine. And then they evoke out another Fury, and in response, we will cast a Murderous Cut, killing their Fury. And when we exile these spells from our yard, it also pumps our Murktide Regent. And with that on the stack, they concede. Let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 3 pushes for 3 Toroks. Game 2, our hand is just a little too landlight, so we got them all. And our 6 is much stronger. We'll put back an Indulgence. Opponent goes turn 1 shocking in a Temple Garden. We top deck a land. And I guess we're playing into Veil Summer. Kind of sucks. And they do have the Veil. Then opponent plays out a tap Steam Vents. We top deck another Thoughtseize, so we'll fire it off. Oh man. We're taking the Nissa, I believe. And then we'll play out our Delta. Oh, and then opponent top decks a Rin. Bah! Then they'll play out their Heath, which grabs a Triumph, and then they tick up drawing a land. We top deck a Counterspell, not horrible. Opponent plays out their Heath, fetching, then taking up with Rin, getting back their Windswept Heath, and nothing else. So we'll cast a Tainted Indulgence, and we'll discard the Swamp here. Then we top deck a Consider, we'll play out our Otawara, and then they cast out an Endurance, which we will have to counterspell. Then opponent plays out an Omnath, which draws a card when it enters the battlefield. Then they play out a fetch land, and fetch right away. So in response, we will Drown Lock, killing the Omnath, and then they tick up their Rin. We draw an Urborg, we'll cast a Consider, bottoming a land. Do find a Mastery, so we'll play out Urborg and hold that up. Opponent plays out their Heath, then ticks up with Rin, and has nothing else, so on the end step, we'll cast a Baleful Mastery on the Rin, and that does resolve. We top deck a Consider, we'll play that out. I don't think Snapcaster is good enough, so we'll bottom that, and we do find a Days Undoing, so we'll cast out our Narset, and then we'll down tick her, and we will pick up a Tainted Indulgence, and on our end step, they cast an Endurance, shuffling our yard back into our deck. Then they go straight to combat, attacking down our Narset. Then they play out a Rin and 6, into a fetch land, then ticking up Rin. We'll run out our Indulgence first, and we'll discard our Murktide Regent, play out a land, and then cast a Days Undoing. And in response, they cast out another Endurance. Our hand did not get very good. Opponent attacks in for 6, then plays out a Teferi, and at this point, we'll just concede and get on to game 3. Game 3, our starter looks quite strong. We'll lead on turn 1 fetch shock into a Thoughtseize, and we'll take a Teferi. They play out a Heath, we draw an Otawara, we'll play out our Island. Opponent plays out a Misty, we top deck a Murktide, we'll play out Otawara. Opponent goes Plains into Teferi, and we'll cast a Force Negation. We find a Days Undoing, but we'll just hold up Counterspell and cycle Shark Typhoon. Ooh, an opponent has a Nissa, and sadly, I do think we have to counter this. And then they run out of Steam Vents. We find a Watery Grave, we will shock it in and hold up everything. Opponent plays out an Omnath, then plays a tap Temple Garden. So we'll cycle a Shark Typhoon, which finds us a land, and then we top deck a Thoughtseize, so we'll fire off a Thoughtseize. And we will take take their Omnath, play out our Strand, and attack in for 2. And now we will just kill this. An opponent main phases a Solitude, killing our Shark, then plays out a Strand. We top deck a Force, we'll play out our Murktide, and it'll come out as an 8/8, and we can still hold up our Force negation. Opponent cast out a Rin. I don't really want to Force negation this, but I will. And then they cast a One Ring. Oh goodness. Then they play out the Misty. Come on, Narset. All right, we top deck a Narset, and we're going to leave her on 5. Opponent loses a life from the One Ring, and they pass. Oh, come on, baby. Baleful Mastery, also a great card. So we'll cast a Days Undoing, and we'll hold priority and use our Baleful Mastery, killing their Solitude. And then our Days Undoing resolve. Let's freaking go. Ah, yes, Red and 6. They ping out our Narset, and we have them on a 2-turn clock. We top deck another counter spell. We'll play out our Delta and attack in for 8. And they activate One Ring, drawing 1 card. But I don't think they have any outs here. And opponent scoops it up. Let's get on to match number 2. Match number 2, we are on the play, and our starting hand is a little weak, but we'll keep. And we'll go turn 1 Delta. Opponent goes turn 1 Spire Bluff into a Rag, and then plays out a Bobble. And they use Bobble in our upkeep, looking at our top, and we'll fetch it away. And we top deck a Ransom. We'll play out our Hull and hold up our Snap. And they go straight to combat, and we're going to ambush Viper. And they go for an Unholy Heat, so we're going to Force Negation, pitching our Shark Typhoon. And we'll block the Rag. Then they play out a Saga. We top deck a Push, so we'll play out our Otawara, and then play our Narset. And we'll down tick right away. And we'll pick up a Consider. Opponent plays out their own Otawara, holding up Saga activations. We top deck another Consider, we'll down tick Narset, finding a Days Undoing, and we'll just slam that now. And it resolves. And in their main phase, they activate a Construct, and they pick up a Bobble, and then play out a Strand. And then we top deck another Narset, we'll play out our Strand, passing back. And in their upkeep, we'll cast a Baleful Mastery, allowing them to draw a card, but Narset doesn't really care about that anyways. They play out a Mox Amber into a land, and then Bobble us. And we find a Drown. I guess we'll fire off a Thoughtseize, and we'll take their Bobble, and we'll slam another Narset, and then we'll downtick, and we'll pick up an Opt. When I cast out an Emery, we top deck another Drown, we'll activate our Narset, and we'll pick up a Consider. We'll cast out our Consider, and we'll keep the land. We'll play out our Island, and then cast an Opt. Ooh, I definitely want a Ransom. Yeah, we'll keep that, and then we will cast our Drown in the lock, kill in their Emery. Opponent plays out a Mountain, we top deck another Days Undoing. We'll main phase this Ransom, and they just give up, so I'll take the 4 face down pile. And then we'll cast out our Murktide region, and playing out a tapped Watery Grave, and then our opponent concedes. For our sideboarding, we're going to bring in our Reanimation package for all of these mediocre cards. Game 2, our starter is a little too weak here, so a Mole, and we'll keep our 6, putting back an Unmarked Grave. Opponent leads on a turn 1 Hallowed Fountain into a Spell Bomb. We top deck a counter spell, we'll fetch Shock, and then we'll cast the Thoughtseize, and we'll definitely take their Emery. Opponent plays out a Tarn and not their Saga. We top deck an Otawara, we'll play that out, and hold up counter spells and our Tainted Indulgence. Now they play out their Saga, and then play it to Fairy, which we will counter. We top deck a Snap, we'll cast a Consider. I want to land really bad. Come on. No. Opponent plays out a Tarn. We do find a Ransom, and I'm not sure what the right play is here, but I'm going to cast a Tainted Indulgence. Still no land. And we're going to put back a counter spell, and then cast a Consider, and we'll keep the Swamp on top, playing it out. And on our end step, they make a Construct. Ooh, opponent finds a Tomad's Grip, then attacks in for 3, then plays out an Island into a Breach, and then off their Breach, they cast an Emery. Finding a Soul Guide Lantern as well, and they exile our Tainted Indulgence, then pop Crypt right away. We top deck a land, so we'll cast a Drown Lock now, killing their Emery, and then we'll play out our Strand. Opponent cycles their Soul Guide Lantern, then dashes out a Ragavan, and we'll let this happen. Oh, and they exile Counterspell. That's so unfortunate. Yeah, and we can't even cast our Ransom here because they can cast our Counterspell. We top deck a Delta, we'll play that out, then they play out another Saga, and then they dash out a Ragavan, and cast a Breach. And yeah, we do have to cast a Snapcaster in response to this, targeting our Drown and Lock, and then we'll Drown and Lock the Breach. Then opponent attacks in with the team, and we will kill their Rag. And then they do nothing else, so we'll fetch out a Watery Grave. When we find a Consider, we'll fire that off. And Fatal Push does keep us alive, so we'll keep that one, and we'll fire off a Push on their Construct. They play out a Flooded Strand into another Breach. That's so good. Then they play out their Emery, which mills 4. Then they cast out an EI, which exiles a Ragavan, so they cast a Ragavan from exile. Then they cast out a Soul Guide Lantern, exiling our Fatal Push. And I guess on the end step, we will cast our Ransom. And we'll take the hidden pile because this doesn't help us at all. And I guess we aren't technically dead here. So we'll play a tapped Watery Grave. And on our instep, they pop the Soul Guide Lantern. And in their upkeep, they make a Construct. And they pick up a Bobble off of their Saga. And they do have it to Fairy. Yeah, and even if we slam the Archon at this point, we are just going to lose. So we'll scoop it up and get on to game 3. For game 3, our 7 looks quite strong. We'll lead on a turn 1 Swamp, holding up Push. Opponent goes turn 1 Canal into a Ragavan, and we will push that. We top deck a Ransom. We'll play out an Island and hold up Indulgence. They shock into Steam Vents and cast out a Shredder. And on their end step, we will cast an Indulgence, discarding our Archon. We top deck a Consider, we'll play out our Island. Opponent attacks in for 1, then plays out a Saga, and casts out an Emery. So on their end step, we'll cast a Ransom. Come on, Persist. And this bottom pile could have a Persist, so we're going to try and get one. Oh, they got us. God dang it. No Persist. Unfortunate. So we will Drown and Lock, killing the Emery, and then play out a Delta. Opponent plays out a Tarn, then attacks in for 1. So on the end step, we'll cast a Consider, and we do not need another land. Ah, man. Oh, we top deck a Persist. We will cast that right away, getting back an Archon, and that resolves. We draw into another Archon. Interesting. God, I don't know what to do here. Guess we'll just play a tapped Grave, and on our end step, they make a Construct token. And of note, they did discard a Breach off of the Archon trigger, and in their upkeep, they make another Construct, and off the Saga, they pick up a Spell Bomb, bouncing our Archon to hand, and we get attacked in for 2. Ah, yes, our hand is beautiful. Opponent plays out a Soul Guide Lantern, we'll let that resolve, and they exile our Drown, and then attack in for 6. Then cast out a Grinding Station, and on their end step, we will Scry. Sadly, both of these just do nothing, so we gotta bottom both. And we do find a Snap, so we'll play out our Delta and pass. Opponent goes straight to combat, and we will flash in a Snapcaster Mage, and in response, they sack their Soul Guide Lantern, so we'll just go to blocks, blocking a Construct. They play out another Saga. Ah, they played out the Breach. Then opponent casts out an Emery, milling themselves for 4. Then they cast out a Mox Amber, and then they cast out a Teferi. Then they bounce their Mox Amber, and they can make infinite mana here and mill their deck, and eventually play out a Thassa's Oracle, killing us. So we'll scoop it up here and get on to match number 3. Match 3, we're on the play, and we'll keep a risky hand. We'll lead on turn 1 Delta, holding up Consider. Opponent goes turn 1 Tarn, and we'll Consider on the end step, keeping a Hall. We top deck a Cut, and we'll play our Hall. Opponent plays out a Foothills, and we'll cast our Tainted Indulgence. And we'll discard our Murderous Cut here. We do find a land, so we'll play out our Island, holding up our interaction. They play out a Tarn, and then we'll cast out another Indulgence, and we'll discard a Push. And we top deck a Counterspell, so we'll play out our Island and cast the Thoughtseize. Oh, and we are up against Rhinos, so we'll take one of their Outbursts. They play out a Mountain, and we draw a Ransom, and on our end step, they cast a Violent Outburst. So we will cast a Drown and Lock on this, and they force negation in response, pitching a Fire Ice, counter the force. When untap, slamming a Outburst off the top, then plays out a Misty. We top deck and Consider, and we'll just run out our Snap and target our Drown, and we'll flash it back, killing one of the Rhinos. Then opponent casts out a Fury, killing our Snap, then attacking in for 4, putting us down to 11. We top deck a counter, we'll cast a Consider, and Baleful Mastery is super awkward. I think we gotta bottom it. Yeah, land's not gonna do it either, so we'll play out a tap land and hold up our Counterspell and Sworn's Ransom, and they attack in for 10. And on the end step, we'll cast a Ransom, and in response, they cast a Fire, killing us, so we'll get on to sideboarding. We're gonna bring in the Reanimation package and take out some weak cards. Game 2, we're gonna mull our 7 here, and then no lands for our 6. We're going down to 5. All right, no lands for 5. Let's go down to 4. I guess we're keeping this 4. We'll put back a Delta, a Thoughtseize, and another Thoughtseize, and we'll go turn 1 tapped Grave. Opponent goes turn 1 Shocking in a Stomping Ground and suspends a Footfalls. Find an unmarked Grave, which is not very strong. Opponent suspends another Footfalls and plays out an Island. So on the end step, we'll cast our Indulgence, and we'll discard an Archon. We find a Swamp, we'll cast out a Thoughtseize, and I think we have to take the Shardless Agent here, and then we'll play out a tapped Watery Grave. They play out a Misty, and we top deck a Watery Grave. We'll play that out tapped. They play out a Tarn, passing. We draw another land. We'll cast out our unmarked Grave, hanging it out to a Mystical Dispute. And they're too smart. So we'll just put another Archon in the yard, and then play out our Swamp. And on our end step, they tap down a Watery Grave with Ice. In their upkeep, they cast a Footfalls, and then play out a Foothills. Come on, Persist. Gosh darn it. Yep, and even if we top deck a Persist at this point, we're too far behind, so we gotta scoop it up and get on to match number 4. Match 4, we're on the play, and our starting hand just needs a black source. We'll go turn 1 Island, holding up Consider. Opponent goes turn 1 Steam Vents into a Ragavan, so we will cast our Consider, and we will bend the Tainted Indulgence, finding a force. And we do find the black source off the top, so we'll shock it in and push the Ragavan. Opponent plays out an Islet into a Swift Spear, and then cast a Lava Dart. Then they attack us for 2. We top deck another force, so we'll play out our Island, and then cast out a Narset, down ticking, and we'll pick up a Drown and Lock. Opponent leads on a Lightning Bolt targeting our Narset, which we'll let resolve, and then they end up attacking us for 2. We do top deck a Grave, so we'll play that out tapped. They play out a Fiery Islet into a Manamorphose, and we'll fire off a Force Negation on them, and then they attack us for 2. We top deck a Hall, we'll play that. They tickle us for 1 damage, and then cast a Bolt, and we'll fire off our Baleful Mastery on this. And then after combat, they play out a Stormwing Entity, Blast from the past, and they scribe both to the top. We top deck another land, we'll play it out, and then cast our Drown, killing their Stormwing. And in response, they sack their land to Lava Dart us, not sure why. They cast out a Swift Spear, and then they attack us. And we will fetch an island and cycle the Shark Typhoon, and try and block the Swift Spear. And we do pick up an Opt, so we'll block. And they do have a Gut Shot targeting us, and that means our Shark dies. We draw a Strand for turn, we'll play that out, and we'll hold up Hull activations to block this Swift Spear. And no attacks from the opponent. We'll cast our Opt, and Thoughtseize is just not good at this point. Top decking Narset, then we draw another land, we will slam our Narset. Narset resolves, and we will downtick, picking up a Drown and Lock, and we will kill their Monastery Swift Spear now. Then playing out our Delta, and on the end step, they fire off a Bolt. I think we have to Force Negation this, and we'll pick up a Swamp to do that. They draw Tarn for turn. Yep, in our upkeep, they sack. And we top deck and consider. We'll downtick with Narset. Give me a Days Undoing, please. Spinning the land, and we find a Days Undoing. We'll fire that off because they already drew this turn, which means they're gonna have 0 cards. Let's freaking go. And nothing from the opponent. We'll cast a Tainted Indulgence, discarding a land, and then we'll cast another, discarding a land. We draw another Ransom. We'll play out our Otawara and pass the opponent. Again, nothing from the opponent, so we'll cast the Ransom, and I think we'll take the face down pile here. Push is not a bad draw. We'll cycle Shark Typhoon for 2, finding a Snapcaster Mage. Then we top deck and consider. We'll play out our Castle, activate our Hull, and try and attack in for lethal here. And they scoop it up. Let's get on to sideboarding. And we're going to bring in our reanimation package and take out all of our slow cards here. Game 2, our starting 7 looks great. Wow, opponent goes tap Steam Vents on turn 1. And we top deck a counter spell, which is a little awkward here because I did want to fetch a basic Swamp, but we'll shotgun our Watery Grave and Thoughtseize the opponent. And this is a pretty easy light up the stage take. Opponent plays that at tap Steam Vents. We top deck an Archon. We'll play out Otawara. And on their end step, they cast the Bolt targeting us. They play out an Islet and crack it. Holy, that's a sign of weakness. And on their end step, we will cast a Tainted Indulgence. And we do find a Persist, so we'll discard our Archon, untap, cast our Persist, targeting our Archon. And I think that should be game here. Yep, and there's the concession. Let's get on to match number 5. Match 5, our starter looks great. We'll lead on turn 1 Delta. They play out Den of the Bugbear, and I noticed they're on Obosh. That is terrifying. We find a Ransom. We'll play out our Strand. Opponent plays out a Mountain into a Relic. And we do top deck a Days Undoing, so we'll play out our island, fetch an island with our Flood Strand, and then we'll fetch out a basic Swamp, playing around Blood Moon here, and we'll slam our Narset. And we won't downtick here. And on our end step, they cast a Bolt targeting Narset. Then they play out a Mountain into a Dash Dragaman, attacking our Narset. Unfortunate. And we do top deck another Narset, but I think we're going to play this a little bit slower. And on their end step, they do pop Relic, exiling our yards. They play out a Blast Zone into a Ragavan, and then cast out a Spyro, discarding Flame Slash and a Relic. And on their end step, we'll cast our Ransom. And I don't think there's any reason to not take the Consider and Watery Grave, so we'll pick that pile. We top deck a Drown. We will shock in our Watery Grave. They go straight to combat. We will Fatal Push their Ragavan, and then we'll take 4 damage. And then they cast out a Bone Crusher Giant, which I do believe we should drown. Then they run out tap Spikefield Hazard, so we'll cast a Consider. And land is fine, we'll keep that. We top deck a Hull, we'll play that out, tap, and they go straight to combat, attacking us for 4. And we'll run out our Snapcaster Mage, and we will target Drown and Lock. And they do Spikefield Hazard our Snapcaster Mage, which is fine. And we'll take the 4 damage here. And then opponent casts out a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And sadly, I think I have to counter this. Don't really want to, but have no other option. And we top deck a Murktide Regent. Quite a powerful draw. So we will play that out. Play out a tapped Watery Grave and hold up our Drown. Opponent goes to combat, attacks in with the team. We'll block the Spyro. Then they cast a Stomp targeting us, and we will cast a Drown countering that. And then they put Obosh into hand. I think we might actually steal this game. So we'll play out our Narset and then cast a Days Undoing. And those were some good draws for us. Opponent activates their Den and attacks us with everything. So we will eat their Den in combat with our Merc. And then they play out a tapped land. Oh my god, I have never seen this card before, but it's quite strong here. We draw another land, we'll downtick with Narset, and we will pick up a Fatal Push. We will push the Goblin, cast out a Consider, and we will keep a Drown on top. Then we'll play out a Delta, and we have to finish this game quick here. So we'll attack in for 7. Opponent dashes out a Ragavan, then attacks us with the team, so we will cast a Drown and Lock, killing the Ragavan, and then we will also Drown and Lock one of the 1/1s. And then they cast out a Spyro. Okay, come on, Fatal Push or a removal spell. We'll downtick with Narset. Oof, none of those really help. We'll pick up a counter spell, then we'll cast an Indulgence. Wait, that might do it. That's so close. Ugh. We will discard a Thoughtseize. Then we will cast a Murderous Cut on the Seasoned Pyromancer, exiling 4 spells, and then we will attack in for 11, play out a land, and then pass to the opponent. And in their upkeep, they activate the land, dealing 1 damage to us. And just to do this now, we will cast our Baleful Mastery, exiling the Elemental. Wow, that was a crazy game. Let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to bring in the Reanimation package, but we're also going to be keeping in our Narset Wheel package, so this is the cards we're siding out. Game 2, our starting hand has the Persist combo, so we will keep. Then it goes turn 1 Mountain into a Ragavan. We top deck a Counterspell. We'll play at our Delta in case they slam a turn 2 Blood Moon. They attack in with Rag, exiling an Otawara. And then they do play the Blood Moon, so we will fetch out our basic Swamp. Ooh, we top deck a Push. I think we'll play this a little bit slower here. We'll play out a Flooded Strand and hold up our Push. Opponent goes straight to combat and attacks him with the Ragavan, and we will cast our Push on it. Oh, they do have a Relic. Activating it right away, we'll get rid of a land. We draw another land. We will play out our Island and pass the opponent. Opponent activates Relic again, then pops it. This might give us a chance to resolve our Persist combo. Then they play out a Ragavan. Sadly cannot counter or kill that. We top deck another Persist, so we will slam our Unmarked Grave and put an Archon into the yard and then play out a Watery Grave. They play out a Mountain and then attack us with Ragavan, exiling an Unmarked Grave of their own. And then they buy Obosh. We draw an Archon and we will 100% persist our Archon. That resolves and Archon triggers. And opponent scoops them up. We end up going positive. Let's go. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.